Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe galaxy. And today, why don't we head overseas to South Africa, where we already have many guests and many fans of Aaron's Opinion. Let's go over to Johannesburg and talk to Professor Heidi Lourens, Associate Professor of Psychology at University of Johannesburg. So before you became an Associate Professor of Psychology, you first of all started out as a Heidi. So tell me about your whole life growing up, the whole life journey thus far. Who's Heidi? What's going on at the University of Johannesburg? All your work, the whole philosophy. What's really going on in your world and in your life? So I'll mute my microphone, as I like to say. I'll mute the microphone and turn it right over to you. Who's Heidi? Go.
Wow, Aaron, the whole life story. That is quite a thing. So, yeah, let me think. So, I was born in the Western Cape here in South Africa. I think the most beautiful part of South Africa, where we have mountains and the sea and everything. And shortly after, when I was still an infant, about 3 or 4 months old, my dad said he, asked the doctor, something is not right with my daughter's eyes. And they said, no, it's just a muscle, didn't develop, it's all normal. But soon after that, it became evident that there was really an issue. So then I was diagnosed with retinoblastoma, which is a childhood eye cancer, and they had to remove my one eye, and the other eye could be saved with radiation therapy. So when I was an infant already, I got an artificial eye. Uh, and yeah, after that, I could see about 10%, I would say. So I attended a school for the blind here in South Africa, Pioneer School, and at the age of 10, I remember one day I was in the shop, and the shop has these um, white and blue stripes on the floor, and all of a sudden the blue stripes seemed so dusty to me, and I said to my mom, sure, but the floor is really dirty, and she said, no, but it's not. Um, and when I got home, all of a sudden everything was just dark. It was almost like, how can I put it? It was this like a bat was moving in front of my eyes. So I couldn't see anything from the sides of my eye. Um, but I could see light coming in, if that makes sense, with this moving thing in front of my eye. So, you know, we went to my school had eye specialists, and they said it's like, I don't know what you call it in English, but it's like there's a bruise in your eye, and it will clear up, and in 3 months' time, all will be well, and I will be able to see again. Well, I never could see again, so that was when I became entirely blind. But luckily, because I didn't have a lot of sight, I learned Braille from the age of 6 already, so I was quite equipped. And if you are so young, then you are uh, yeah, if you are so young, you adapt quite quickly, I think. So yeah, so I finished my school years, and let me just say I have two younger sisters whom I'm very close with. They're quite much younger than me. The one is 6 years younger than me, and the one is 8 years younger than me. My mom and dad were told that they shouldn't have more children because the eye cancer can be hereditary, and they might have it. They never got it. So, um, fortunately. So then after school, I went to university, Stellenbosch University, also in the Western Cape, also very nice place to be in if you are a student, not necessarily because of the learning, but it's all, surrounded by wine estates, and it's a fantastic place. And I did my degrees there. I did my undergrad, my BA, and then my honors, and went on to do my master's in counseling psychology, was registered as a psychologist, and then I did my doctorate. And in the meantime, end of my master's year, I got married. So I started working as a psychologist part-time while doing my doctorate part-time. But at that stage, I always wanted to be a psychologist. It was my great dream to become a psychologist. And when I did my internship after my psychology degree, I realized that I really miss the research, and I really miss writing, and I really miss um, academia. So that's why I then proceeded to do my doctorate, and then I thought I would really want to go into lecturing. So that is then, I was so fortunate then in 2015 to get the job in Johannesburg. I moved up here. Uh, I never thought I would live in Johannesburg, away from the mountains and all that. But at the end of the day, it was the best move of my life, I would say. Apart from absolutely loving my job, where my responsibilities are, to teach, obviously, but also to do research. And research is really my passion. What was very nice for me is how many friends I made here in Johannesburg. It just felt easier. I don't know how to put it. When I came this side and just had all of a sudden this social life, and yeah, so I love my job. I wouldn't want to have any other job. It's very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling working with the students, especially supervising the research, since research is my passion. My research is, mostly, not all of it, but mostly around disability studies, disability in higher education, those sort of things. So in 2019, feels like my story is a bit fragmented, a bit this of this and a bit of that. But in 2019, I had, the experience that I had a bit of, no, not a bit, quite a lot of pain just under my right eye, which was still the remaining eye that I had left. It couldn't see anymore, but, it was my remaining eye. And it turns out I had a cyst in my sinuses. So they removed that. But then the pain persisted. And I went to the ocular oncologist who worked with eye cancer, and he said to me, the tumor in my eye has calcified so much that it will actually help if we remove it. So I thought, you know what? The eye can't see, the eye is not looking pretty, and it hurts. So logic just dictates that we should do it. It was, I would say, a difficult decision at the time, because even though the eye is not functional, it's still part of who you are. It's still part of your body. But yeah, they removed it. It was quite an emotional time for me. But what was great for me is I had brown eyes. And so, so I thought, you know what? I always wanted green eyes. I love green. So this is my opportunity, and who can say that they can change their eye color, right? You can change our hair color and whatnot, not our eyes. So, so then I got my green eyes, because of course I couldn't change it beforehand, because otherwise I would have had one green eye and one brown eye. So, and I can honestly say at this stage, I am so grateful for that decision because it enhanced my confidence tremendously. I used to be quite ashamed of the fact that I had artificial eyes. Now I am, now it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I feel more confident. I feel my eyes look better, because I think many blind people can relate, right? That your eyes are sometimes a source of of I want to say embarrassment or shame, and it was for me like that. So uh, but yet it was also quite, like I said, emotional to have them removed. But now I'm very proud of my eyes. So yeah. So that's the story of my eyes. And yeah, furthermore, in when was it? 2022, just after COVID, as so many other people, I got divorced. It was also quite a difficult time, but also a good decision at the time. So now at the moment I'm living in my small house with my 3 ginger cats and my black Labrador guide dog called Upton. I absolutely enjoy cooking. If you would have asked me 3 years ago or 4 years ago if I would like cooking, I would have said not in 1,000 years. But yeah, I last year I started really enjoying it, and making use of AI and asking for recipes, and uh so that is something I so enjoy. I also, over weekends, I often go to farmers markets with my friends. We always look for what new markets can we go to, especially where we can buy chili sauces or pestos or things like that. And yeah, and further, my free time I also spend, I love going to shows. I just saw Chicago, the musical, last Friday. What an amazing experience that was. So yeah, that is me. And yeah, all I can say is at the moment I'm looking forward to the December holidays at this stage of the year. Um
Well, that was a fabulous introduction, as I knew it would be. Absolutely. Many people around the world have had a very similar experience to yours with, different eye problems having to have their eyes removed. I mean, I've heard of that, and I've also heard of this huge trauma. You see that it certainly is. But you go about your business. You keep living your life, and that's exactly what you did. Yeah, absolutely. And in my case, I was born blind with glaucoma. I forget what I told you. So if I'm repeating myself,
mm,
I'm going to repeat myself. I was born with glaucoma and a
yeah.
congenital heart defect, and things like that. I'm particularly and especially and acutely interested, as we would say, in the fact that you have a great interest not only in psychology, which I'll get to in a moment, but disability rights and disability law and disability education. In other words, getting people involved with disabilities and getting an education. And this is something that my parents fought very, very well for me to have the services that I needed to get as a boy in America. Even in America, as you know, the vast majority of blind people are not even attending university, let alone getting a PhD. So this is, as you know, but the audience does not understand, Heidi. This is a big problem. It's a big problem for
Mm,
society.
mm.
And this is, unfortunately, since the pandemic, these types of things have become a much bigger problem. So really dig into it. What can you tell us, specifically speaking, about, your academic knowledge in disability rights, disability education, getting people with disabilities properly educated? What does it all mean to you? Really, really break down, get under my skin and really break down all the details and knowledge you have about that section.
Okay, let me start with the personal, right? Because I remember when I was still in grade 3, I was about 8, and then you think, oh, I want to do this. And, everyone wants to become a teacher when they are young. Want to become a teacher, and then one day someone spoke of being a housewife, and I thought, oh, that sounds quite cool. And I said to my dad, I will become a housewife one day. And he said, nonsense! You will go to university. And I said to him, what does that mean? And he told me. And from that day on, it was just in my head, oh, okay, that's what I will do. And he had, as a parent, and you also mentioned your parents, no hesitation in saying, you will go to university. He didn't think, oh no, I can't do it. Oh no, he has to protect me. And I think that is where it often starts, Erin. I see it so often, and it's not um, that parents are bad or anything like that. It's just that they sometimes don't know. So I think awareness is so important because oftentimes, children are so protected. They are not allowed to do anything around the house or in the house or anything like that. And in psychology, we know that if you are not allowed or permitted to have certain tasks in your house, to make your bed, for example, then you don't develop often that achievement motivation later in life that to assist you, right? So that is where I would say where it starts, where it started for me at least. And then, just in terms of my research, what we found so often, and it's so sad, is I know in many parts of the country, or not country, the world, special schools are not at the order of the day anymore. By us, it is very much still. Because there's not a lot of finances to have assistance, for uh, children with disabilities in mainstream schools. And often in the special schools, and I wrote about this as well, the children are also not encouraged. They are told you can't do it instead of you can do it. They don't receive proper career counseling, for example. When I said, and this is going back to the personal, but they say the personal is political, so it's all so intertwined. But when I remember so clearly when I said I'm going to be a psychologist, I was told, uh, you can't because you can't see body language, you can't do assessments. It was all the things of you can't instead of you can, as opposed to my parents who just from the start said, you can do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen often with research that school children, school learners are told, uh, that they can't go and do something. And what happens? Often they remain dependent, on their parents, um, and or on others, and it's not because, and this is the unfortunate part, not because of inability at all. It's just sometimes that, first of all, you didn't have the opportunities often, or you believe what you've been told. um so that is important. In South Africa, we have a terrible situation that some of the special schools, what we call previously disadvantaged schools, the schools that was under the apartheid era was underprivileged, they sometimes don't have enough textbooks, for example, or any textbooks for the learners, So um, often the schools don't offer subjects that allow you to to go into to university. Um, and look, I'm not saying that university is the only way to have a good and independent life, because it is certainly not. There's a lot of other avenues, but what I'm just saying is that if you should have the opportunity, the choice, at least, sorry, that's my guide dog, to pursue that if you wish to do so. Um, so that is my thing. And if you can't even get basic education, you know, then you don't have that choice. So I don't know if I've answered your question. But yeah, I think it is so important. Also for self-worth to know that you have those choices. If you want to go to university, then you can. If you want to pursue something else, if you want to become an entrepreneur, then you can. If you know what I'm saying, that you don't feel that you are limited by society. Yeah.
You answered my question perfectly, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, and exactly what we believe in our family. And but you're also 100% correct. A lot of it has to do with the parents. If the parents went to university, that then the child will, and that ever since
Yes.
the pandemic, and really ever since forever, people have always been debating the true necessity, as you hinted, the true necessity of university. In my case, I hold a BA, a bachelor's in international relations, from one of the small universities in Maryland. Off air, I can certainly tell you a lot more about some of my detailed experiences. Yet, I still to this very day, although we in our family, we believe that university is necessary. The honest answer, Heidi, the direct answer, Heidi, is I have no idea if it's a necessity. I can't tell because
Mm,
there are so many people who do very well with a degree, and there's so many people who
mm,
do very well without a degree. So
mm, mm,
I can't tell. In America, it's hard to know. But the way that we think of it is, well, or I guess the other way or a different way of thinking through that equation is what is the most probable way that you will probably be successful? You know, generally it's still believed in American society that you make more money with a degree than without. So most parents say, well, you will probably end up being more successful with a degree than without. Because for most people with disabilities, in fact, all people with disabilities, the other choices in American society that you can do without a degree are very visual and require an
mm.
enormous amount of either visual skills or physical skills. So, you know, we're not able to serve in the military in America, obviously. And there may be, and in the olden days, in the old times from many moons ago or many decades past, as you know, the blind were trained to tune pianos
Yes.
and perform in and become massage therapists and work in that type of medical situation. Now, of course, are there still blind piano tuners today? Sure, I certainly hope so because they make a lot of money. Are there still massage therapists? Yeah, I hope so because they make a lot of money. So it's not entirely clear, but what is clear is it's about the attitude. It's about your mindset, your framework of being successful in life in general. And that's what you definitely hinted on. Yeah. I will certainly
Ab-
go. Yes, tell me.
oh, sorry.
No worries.
Absolutely, absolutely your mindset. And you know, when I was in university, I told someone the other day, someone said, if you start studying, if you have a clear idea of what you want to do with your degree, you have a greater chance of success than if you just, I'll just wing it, you know. As with anything else, I think in life, you know, when you start something and you have the clear vision and the attitude of this is what I want to do, you know, then there's greater chance of success.
You're right. You're right. And I still don't know what I want to do. I don't know. I think I want to be a podcaster or something like that. But
Well, you are.
interesting. Well, there you go. So interestingly, though, in my work that I do outside of this, I am a teacher. I teach English as a second language online, and I'm also bilingual English French. So I have many French students that I have to speak to in French and English and teach them English and French and things like that. So I'm one of my passions in life is language acquisition. By the way, I love hearing you speak. You have a beautiful, beautiful accent. That is the way you talk is so soothing and so magical. I could listen to that beautiful accent of yours all day. That is the best voice for podcasting I've ever heard. Seriously, that is
Really? Thank you.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. We in the States, we love hearing people from South Africa speak. We're fascinated by that beautiful, beautiful, strong and kind way that people in your country speak. It's so nice. Yeah. So by
Oh,
the way,
thank you.
how many languages can you speak well? And what is your what is your whole like theory about language acquisition and how speech is used in society?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I can only speak two languages, and that is English and Afrikaans. Afrikaans is like almost want to say a simplified version of Dutch. So those are my two languages, and that is now in a country where there's 12 official languages. Um, Regarding language acquisition from a psychological point of view, I know that, learning various and a lot of languages is best when you are young, when you start learning to speak. They say they had the idea at first that it was, you know, a bit, uh, it would be confusing, but it's actually not. It's the best time to learn as many languages as you can. So, but I think for me, if I think of language, I think it's a way of building bridges and of uh, in our country, with 12 official languages, I mean, it's great if someone can just at least greet you in your language, and you just feel this connection, you feel like, oh, I am on this gaming site. I don't know if you know of it, RS Games, where I play Scrabble and so on. And I once spoke to someone from Europe who greeted me in Afrikaans, and it was just, you just feel immediately, I don't know, it's a connection that, and you feel like, oh wow, that this person actually took the effort. So for me, in terms of human relations, I think it is so important. But yeah, unfortunately, I can only speak two languages. In South Africa, it is absolutely essential to be able to speak English because we have so many different languages.
Right, sure. So there's 12 official,
Yes,
but really English, the official language, if you want to call it that, is the main language would be the global language of English because it's a global society.
absolutely,
So it's a very global place. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
And we used to have 11 official languages, but I think it was last year that sign language became one of the
That's wonderful. It's so
recognized.
good.
Yeah,
That's really,
yeah.
really good.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing Afrikaans. It's beautiful. Actually, I had somebody else, an Afrikaans speaker last week who spoke at the end in Afrikaans. Anyway, though, that's all.
oh,
Oh yeah, no, I've heard it. It's beautiful. It's so magical. I love hearing Afrikaans. Yeah. At any rate, though, let's certainly dig much deeper. So, okay, we covered the disability stuff, and I will certainly, because you're obviously interested in it, I will certainly send you some articles after the episode later today at a later date about some things that happened to me in the past involving advocacy and things that I've done because it's certainly right up your alley of interest. But okay,
great.
so psychology, right? So really, I have some questions about that. In America, as you well know, there are many jokes about studying psychology. The joke, in American society, you have to have a PhD to work in the psychology field, and most people who study psychology have a very hard time finding employment, whether you're blind or not. So, talk about it. Yeah, what is psychology really speaking? What is really going on in the psychological field as far as research? What do you really think is going on in our society today? What's really going on in psychology, and how does practicing psychology work in South Africa? What's really going on?
Okay, sure. That is a very interesting and broad question. So in South Africa, you don't need a doctorate to be a psychologist. You need to have a master's degree. In either counseling or clinical or industrial psychology, educational psychology. There's a few different fields. And the thing is with psychology, uh, it is extremely broad, especially if you think in terms of research. Here I am doing disability studies. Another colleague will do something to do with race. Another will do around individual differences, or um, you know, I'm reviewing proposals for students who are submitting, their masters and doctoral proposals, and you see such a wide variety of topics coming through. So psychology also leans itself well to interdisciplinary research because it touches on so many things. Now, in the practical sense of psychology, you know, here in South Africa, you can work in hospitals or you can work with everyday challenges, and in South Africa, we need a lot of psychologists, I think, everywhere. But the issue is that not everyone can afford it. It is rather expensive, and we still have such a huge gap between, rich and poor, to put it like that. So, unfortunately, not everyone can access those services. Um, You also mentioned, finding jobs. I think that is what is nice if you are a psychologist, is because you can be employed, self-employed, right? So you can put up your own practice. It doesn't need a lot of startup costs. You need basically your phone and an office. And the thing is, only then you have to recruit or you have to find clients, right? That's the one thing. But that is the nice thing about psychology, is that you don't have to be employed by someone necessarily to actually start working. So yeah, let me think if there's something else. Sure, I don't know. I think in South Africa we have our own I think also issues regarding, especially if you think in terms of the past and the absolute disparities it caused. And we talk a lot in South Africa about race because of apartheid. So there's always the discussions around race and those who were left behind and so on. And unfortunately, that sometimes, while those discussions are absolutely 100% important, it overlook sometimes, or how can I say it? It almost overshadow other discussions about other disparities, like people with disabilities, who also did not have a lot of opportunities in the 80s and prior to that, which is, yeah, quite unfortunate. And then if you think of the intersections of disability and race here in South Africa, if you are blind, already perhaps born into the apartheid era, then your chances of having equal opportunities are just so much less. But that is our context here. That's what I can think of at the moment.
Absolutely. I totally understand that. And I've spoken to a lot of people from South Africa who've told me and shared with me their life journeys about how the country was the country was really held back by, as you say, by apartheid and by the past, and really the answer is everybody suffered is the answer.
Mm,
In
mm, mm.
in many different ways, everybody suffered. It was always a lose-lose for everybody, just in very different ways. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
affected things. Most Americans don't really know what that is. I mean, some Americans who studied history would sort of know, but most Americans are not overly familiar with it. I mean, unless you have relatives from South Africa, you wouldn't necessarily know all of the ins, outs, and in betweens of that. But so, okay. So yeah, that all makes sense. So, thinking about things from today, today's perspective, or, just from a disability standpoint. So, okay, what's really going on in disability advocacy right now in South Africa? Are for the people who are going to university, what are some success stories you've been hearing about? What are they studying? How are things really working out for people with disability in universities in South Africa? What's going on there?
Yeah, that has become so exciting, because people used to, in my time, now I sound so old, but in my time, um, you basically studied BA, and that's what I also did, and it felt like the most accessible, and well, it was the most accessible, and that was what you did. And nowadays, we have people studying computer science. Uh, Also, I remember the first two uh, students who started studying computer science when I was actually finishing my studies. And it was such a huge thing, because everyone had to figure out how to do it. But that was for me so amazing because, the university got in there and also figured it out, together with them. It would have been ideal if it was all figured out beforehand, but that obviously that is not realistic often. So that is quite exciting. There's people studying law, finances. So that is just what I've been hearing, and many people having, how can I put it? The lives they want, if I can put it like that. Many of my friends have studied in the psychology field, my blind friends, and are psychologists, um, or they are in academia. I think it's just because of my interest. So those are the people I get in contact with naturally, but. Yeah, I think there's much more awareness. There's still a lot to do. There's still definitely a lot to do, but at least you hear more and more of these success stories, if I could put it like that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Law has always been one of my passions and interests in life. And even though I never became an attorney, a lawyer, as we would say, that
Mm.
it's very interesting for the right person. I think it's interesting. There are also many people who practice or who study law, but never actually practice law themselves. That's also very common in America because they discover pretty quickly that practicing law is not what it's cracked up to be all the time, and they don't always like it. So
Mm.
there's a lot of people who have a law degree, a law background, but then they work in a business or they do other stuff. So although it would sound strange to you, perhaps it's quite common in the United States, yeah, to say, "Oh, I studied law and now I work, I don't know, some some other store or selling stuff on, work for
Yes,
a clothing company or something like that."
yes.
You can do a lot with law, though. I mean, companies always have legal sections, legal departments. I mean, there's a lot that can be done. Just because somebody says they study law in America, it doesn't mean they're going to be an attorney or a lawyer or a judge. It just means what it really means is they like to argue, they like to think, they like to read, they like to write. But it doesn't mean they're
Ah,
actually going to do those things for a career. Because
yeah.
mostly in America, what attorneys do, and when you're studying law in America, it's mostly reading, writing, arguing is mostly what you do. So, so
So you're
it's
just
more about
exercising.
so it's right. So a lot of majors in America, it's about it's a personality thing, about what they really like to do. So
Ah,
growing up, one of my relatives growing up was always a bookworm, and I always teased her when I was a little boy. I always said, "You're a bookworm, you're a bookworm." And she now is an attorney. So yes, there is a stereotype about attorneys being well read, and that is true. You do an enormous amount of reading in the American legal system, and when you're studying law, it's an enormous amount of reading. Mostly that's what you're doing. You're reading is mostly what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So you say about personality and career counseling from a psychological point of view.
Oh yeah,
If
talk
we
about
do
that.
if we do career counseling, then we look at, firstly aptitude, so what your strengths are. We look at your values often, your interests, but also your personality, because
Hmm.
that is important. Because the thing is, you can be good at something, but that doesn't mean that you will necessarily like it. So that is
You're very
important to
right.
find
That's
that,
very
yeah.
subtle. That's extremely subtle and very hard for young people to understand. You can like it, but it doesn't mean you'll be good at it for a job. And I think there was a lot of things that I thought of in my life that I would say, well, I like doing it. I like talking about it, but it doesn't mean I want to get paid to do it. It just means that I like it. And that's a very subtle thing.
And
Yeah.
also the other way around, you can be good at something, but it doesn't mean that you like it. So, and it's to find that balance between what you like and
It's
what you're good
tricky.
at.
It's tricky.
Yeah,
I've never
yeah.
found, apart from being a teacher, which I love, apart from being, as I like to call myself, although I'm not a linguist, I like to just say, because I'm entertained by it, I like to say that I'm a cultural linguist because I love languages. So I'm like, those are my interests and I love using language. But those are the things that I love. But I think as far as my aptitude went, when I was much younger, I was tested probably in America. They do all sorts of weird testing for all children, really. And I think a lot of my tests came back and said that I'm, obviously an auditory learner and that I use my voice. And so it came back to me being a speaker or a public speaker. And as I love everything about public speaking. That's what I want to do is talk, 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 because I can't shut up. So that's what I want to do is talk. Um, so
So
I
this
guess
is such a good fit for you then.
I think in the end, I think it was, Heidi, it was what I do now and how I live my life now is a good fit.
Mm,
But
mm.
please don't forget, and I know you'll understand this, the fact that I'm having a happy life now and a fulfilling life now certainly does not, um, how do I, like, what's the word? My success at this moment in my life does not overweigh or override the fact that when I was much younger, I also faced discrimination and could not achieve what I truly wanted to do in the past. It
Mm,
doesn't,
mm,
I appreciate the success. I appreciate being bilingual, having a job, having a podcast, connecting with you, having everything like that. But, but being successful now doesn't kind of it doesn't the past is still important and there's still
yes,
certain
yes.
traumas and certain things that happened even in my life as an American guy that still traumatize me to this very day and that still really bother me. And there were still choices that were made that as an older adult, I'm 34, by the way. Even though that I'm 34, there's still things that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago that I still don't understand. And
Mm,
I know that that's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to learn and love people and have fun and get out there and just be a happy person. And that's why we're here. But yet it certainly does not make anything easy.
mm,
The
mm,
people are
mm.
really affected by the past, and that's something that I'm very cognizant of. The past is important. So if someone comes to me and they say, Aaron, I'm still really bothered by something that happened to me 10 years ago, I think to myself, okay, good. I understand you because that's okay to be upset from 10 years ago, but you have to keep being successful in the
Absolutely.
future. So yeah, how do you, but in America today, I mean, there's a lot of sighted people that don't have disabilities, that don't know what they want to do after university. Once I was speaking with a student and he happened to be a doctor. And he told me something that you will understand that will really speak volumes to you. And this was many years ago. He said, Aaron, the greatest thing about life for you to understand is all people have ability, and all people have disability. So whether you're blind
Yeah.
or not, everybody has some sort of disability. Most people, most people in America have something wrong with them, or else it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Everybody has something
Yeah.
wrong with them. They just
Yeah.
they just don't want to tell you, you know? So yeah, how do you career counseling? I mean, this is something that career counseling was something that I really missed out on. So walk us through it. What is it? How do you actually counsel people as far as discovering, like, how do you really discover aptitude?
So those are all determined by assessments. So you will have, for example, a assessment battery that will assess almost like an IQ test,
Hmm.
like your verbal ability, your numerical ability, your memory, your short-term memory, um, all those sort of things, your digital, all those sort of aspects, various scales, they say. And based on your performance on those tests, they determine your aptitude. You can also determine someone's aptitude by looking at their performance in school, for example, their final year of school, if you look at those reports. But it's always important as a psychology to take context into account. So some people had the ability, but they were just lazy. You know what I'm saying, in school, or they went through a difficult time, or like I said, here in South Africa, perhaps you didn't have your textbook, or you didn't have equal opportunity. So you have to take those things to account. So when you do your career counseling and you perform those tests, it's extremely important also to have an interview with the person, to just, say, for example, I've seen you done very good at your verbal, um, subtest. Is that something that you find throughout your life, that you are, better in languages? I see that, the maths didn't go so well, and to really talk them through it, to make sure that you understand. It also doesn't help if the person came to the test and they had something to drink, for example, or they are extremely fatigued, or, so you have to take all those things into account. But yeah, so you test the aptitude, and like I say, the interest, because just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you're interested in it. And your personality. What are you, extroverted? Are you introverted? Are you a structured person, or are you okay with a bit of an unstructured environment? Those sort of things. Um,
Absolutely.
and I'm
Yeah.
and I must tell you, like I told you, I mean, I also, and you say a lot of people don't know what they want to do. I never went for career counseling, and then I thought I wanted to be a psychologist, but also I thought that was the only way
Right.
to basically, get to where I wanted to be. And then when I started practicing psychology, I thought, but I really don't like this. And that's why then I went into um, teaching. And that is really what I love. That is what I love, the research so luckily the one thing led me to the other thing. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
I think a lot of blind people in America are attracted to psychology. Either psychology or law are two of the biggest fields that
Mm,
still appeal to blind people. Yeah, but no, it doesn't mean that you'll like it. And I mean, I've had many psychologists. Well, I don't want to say many. I've had maybe one or two other psychologists over the past 5 years, and they love practicing psychology and they happen to be blind, and that's great, you know. But many
mm.
people don't. Yes, that's true. But many don't like psychology. I don't know. With me, the other thing with career counseling and counseling somebody is the person has to already have some idea of what they wanted to do. And when I was a teenager, I didn't know what applied linguistics was. So I didn't know what a linguist was, you know. So I wouldn't
Mm.
have said I want to be a linguist, because until you know what it is, you don't know to say it, you know. And the other thing in America is to be applied linguistics, they would also test your math ability. Certainly the knowledge in the equations of mathematics are similar to the building blocks of language. So they would say, well, they might say, you might be really good at acquiring vocal skills in a language, but your mathematics skills are not good enough to study it, is what they might say. Or they might say, yeah, you're really good. We're going to let you study it. So, but yeah,
Mm.
there's a lot of not having accessible mathematics for blind people in America is a big issue.
Oh,
And
yes.
many careers require some level of mathematics. And if you can't pass the mathematics, they don't let you do it. For the for the misunderstanding and for the misled understanding, if you will, that a lot of people think that if you're bad at mathematics, you're not a good thinker, which of course is not true at all, but they think that. So that's kind of what holds people back in America. If you have a problem with mathematics, there's a lot of jobs they don't let you do. So that's a big problem. Yeah.
Sure. And the thing is, I think you said it, you raised it now. The thing is, I mean, I still have nightmares of my school maths. Really, it was
Me
my,
too.
it was. But I wonder sometimes how much has it to do with inaccessibility and being blind and having to do, what do you call this? Is it
Hmm.
geometry?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
I remember that in high
Yeah,
school.
and not being able to see it. It
Hmm.
is not that you can't do it, but then people automatically assume perhaps that you can't do it,
Well,
and
that's the
that's not
societal,
the
that's the
yeah,
society. But
yeah.
then when I was in high school, though, they did like tactile geometry where they would show
Mm,
you,
mm.
you learn, most high school students learn the basics of like, obtuse angle, acute, straight, 180 degrees, like that. And they show you
Yes,
the triangle and, the Greek words, like hypotenuse and all that fun stuff, that most children around the world learn about that. Many children learn that in high school. So that's pretty common, but what I was saying back to the maths though is it's not and you're right. And geometry is useful for people that want to get into architecture and engineering. And I had no interest in that. I'm not, that's not me. Um,
yes.
there are people who have PhDs in architecture and they'll tell me stuff and I would never understand it. And I don't care how many times they explain it. I'll never understand it. And I never want to know what they're talking about. Architecture in
Yes.
America that's also for sighted people very hard to get a job. It's very competitive now to get into architecture. So, you have to really know the right people in architecture to work in that field. That's really hard for people. Yeah, that's tricky.
So
But, yes.
are there blind people in architecture in America?
There, yeah, I'm sure there are. I don't know who it is, but I'm sure there's engineers who are
Okay.
blind and things like that.
Ah,
But for
ah.
me, that's not about the blindness. For me, it's not about the
Mm.
blindness. It's about the people. If you have an engineer brain, you're an engineer, and I don't have an engineer brain. Um,
Yes,
I,
yes, 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 100%.
I don't have that brain. Now, I will tell you, I appreciate the work that engineers do. They do very important work. But as far as speaking of people who always have a hard time socializing, engineers are so hysterically difficult to interact with. They're people that in many
Isn't
cases,
it true? Sorry, I
they,
interrupted you.
they just there's some characters who are engineers. If somebody tells me I'm an engineer, number one, I can tell before they told me, but I can tell right away based on their social skills. And you can always tell in America, yep, he's an engineer. You can tell. They're that whole mindset of engineering the world is very different. Now, I've had
Yeah.
people on here who've talked about that, and they do a really great job at breaking down the blocks of engineering. But I guess my brain is set up to engineer languages and to put language together. That's what I want to do,
Mm,
which
mm,
is like engineering in a sense, but not quite the same. I don't build the world. I don't understand the world that way, but I understand speech pattern and language acquisition and parts of speech and things like that. And, conjugating verbs and things that you learn as a French speaker. That's why French is famous because it has all the
mm.
elements of building blocks of language. But, I don't know. I mean, there's people in America, Heidi, you know, who just never know what they want to do in life. And in America, where you usually end up is you end up in an office or a store or a restaurant or things like that, whether you're blind or not. That's where you end up.
Mm,
If you don't know what to do, just go work in a store, or,
mm,
go
mm.
sell cars or something like that, but I mean, just like anywhere else. So where have you been, by the way? Where have you been in America?
Oh, in America,
Yeah,
nowhere.
really?
Nowhere.
That's
No,
shocking. Okay.
I've been to Europe, to various places in Europe, but I've never been to America.
Well,
No.
speaking of Europe, I always love going there. France is always my favorite place in Europe forever. France is my favorite. So where do you go in Europe though? Where have you
Oh,
been?
I've never been to France, unfortunately, but I've been to Norway and the
Hmm,
Netherlands and Austria, and Serbia. Yeah, I
very
think
good.
those are. Oh, and the UK. I've been in the UK as well. Well, it's not
Yeah.
part of Europe
Yeah,
anymore,
England's a
but
wonderful. England is wonderful.
yeah,
No matter what, England always has
yeah.
something to offer. What did you do in Norway?
I was there actually for a conference, which is actually such a pity because not the conference, but that I didn't make more of that experience, you know. But I remember we walked in the evenings in the freezing ice cold into the streets were, you know, icy from the snow, if I remember correctly, and that was quite magical.
Yes, it
Um,
is. Yes.
yeah. I would love to go to Switzerland as well. That is a dream of mine. Oh, but that's expensive. And and Finland and Sweden and all those places. But yeah, so never been
It's
to America.
Yeah,
And funnily
it's
enough,
very interesting you mentioned these places. And some of these places, by the way, sometimes they're a lot more open. It's interesting. You're wanting to go to countries where the people are a lot more reserved and insular. And in Sweden and Finland, they're very private. So those are
yeah.
societies where it's a lot harder to make friends and a lot harder for foreigners for that reason. They're very private in those countries. Yeah.
Oh yes. But I just want to go and travel, you know. And if I think of going to the US, funnily enough, the first thing that comes to my mind is Disneyland. Disneyland. That's the
Did,
first one. I
no,
think
perhaps Heidi, do you mean, and
Disney
not to
World.
make a point of correcting, but do you mean Disney World in Florida?
Disney World. Disney World. Yeah, in Florida.
Voilà. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Très bien.
Yeah.
Okay. Disney World in Florida is the one that people go to. Yes, there's Disneyland in California, and that's also equally famous, but the one that is globalized is Disney World, and that's in
Yeah,
Orlando.
that's where I want to be.
Well,
That's where I want to be.
here's the thing about that. If you come now, I don't know much about the weather and climate of Johannesburg, but in Florida, where I'm from, and I don't say on recordings, obviously, I don't say where I'm from. Offer, I'll tell you all the details. But
Yeah.
in Florida, we have this stereotype that it's hot every single second, and that's not true at all. It is too hot in the summer, but the rest of the year is beautiful, incredibly mild. Today it's so beautiful. It's like the middle of October. I can be outside the whole day. You know, in the northern United States, October, middle of the day. Oh my God, you'd have to put a parka on. You'd have to hide under your blanket. It can be brutally, just like in Norway, brutally cold in the United States in the winter and fall. But
Oh, okay.
with a trip to Disney World, you would have to truly plan out when you're coming. I would
Mm.
say you know, the two times when you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there in the summer because it truly is too hot. You don't want to be there in the winter because it's too crowded. You would really want to be there in the late autumn, maybe around the late October or November when there's not too many other people, but
Oh.
it's mild enough where you could bring your guide dog, you could bring, you would be able to have enough of an experience where it would be worth it. But yes, adults, but yes, don't let anybody confuse you. Everybody goes to Disney World. It's for all ages and there's something for
Okay.
everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Growing up, this is an interesting question. I've never thought to ask anyone this. Growing up, what was your favorite Disney movie growing up, or your favorite Disney character growing up?
yo, I didn't watch a lot of
You knew
movies, but
you can already anticipate what I'm going to ask, just for the fun of asking it. So, did they dub like some of the most famous Disney films in Afrikaans, like Lion King or things like that?
no, Lion
Really?
King was my favorite. I watched it so many times. Shrek, yo, that one as well. But no,
I'm not sure Shrek is Disney, but that might be a different. Yeah.
I just think of, you know, I don't know these things, so, but I we also didn't have audio description. at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not in theaters, no way. So I only became aware of audio description around 2012, 11, around that time.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was
Sure.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
It,
Are you friends with, I'd be shocked if you're not, are you acquainted with Jeremy Opperman?
I know of him, but I don't know him.
Oh,
No.
I know of him and I know him. He was on Aaron's Opinion. Me and Jeremy Opperman, we put together actually a 3-part series about audio description, the history of audio description in South Africa. And then I had him come back. I'm not exaggerating. I did a 3-hour recording with him. We spent an hour and a half talking about audio description. And then we took a break, a little 5-minute recess. And then he came back and spoke to me for another hour and a half about the history of his family and the history of South Africa and all of that. So,
Oh,
yeah, he's fascinating. I mean, you're fascinating too, but so are all the other great people. And Jeremy Opperman's a great friend in South Africa and is tremendous. I mean, he's got you. He's got you with his knowledge about audio description. He'll get you on the right track. No ifs, buts, or coconuts.
he's got contacts, right? Because he, in Cape Town, if I'm not mistaken, organized for traffic lights to be accessible for blind people.
I don't know. So I don't know,
I
and
think it's
I don't
him.
quite remember. I don't quite remember in that conversation how much Jeremy does for advocacy, publicly speaking about like transportation and movement. But I know that he's considered to be basically the main inspiration behind audio description in South Africa. So yeah,
Okay. I'm sure he also was involved in, we had a Uber situation, where they,
so do we in the United States. So do we.
yeah, and he had something also to do with that.
Then that was probably him. Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
interested, let me know, after our conversation later today, and let me know. And I can certainly send you the playlist for Jeremy Opperman, but
Yes, please.
that was
Yes.
okay. I'll make a mental note. I'll try to remember, but I can't remember anything. So if I do accidentally forget, just come back to me and say, "Hey, Aaron, give me that playlist, Jeremy Opperman."
Oh,
But
well.
all of this has been, ridiculously fascinating, and you've just done such a beautiful conversation today. So of course, I want to let you. I'm sure that you have a lot of questions about this Aaron Richmond, Aaron's Opinion guy. So I know that someone with a PhD can really ask questions. What do you really want to know about Aaron Richmond and Aaron's Opinion? Ask all your questions. Really get under my skin.
But you asked me in the beginning, do I have questions? And then you heard I don't have a lot of questions. So I'm probably not a good PhD person, but no, I would be interested to know, because I think it should be quite different how it is, growing up blind in America, and what the
Right?
opportunities are, and the employment opportunities, because from what we hear this side is that it's fantastic
That's not
that
true.
people get, yeah, but that's what we hear, you see, that
Well,
people
stop.
get employed.
So here's the
Um,
thing. People need to stop. And you can laugh as hard as you want. Prepare to laugh. People can hear all they want as long as they're hearing the truth. And this thing about, oh, America's perfect. Oh, America doesn't have problems. That's, that's just not true. The
yeah,
reality
okay.
is, and I will, in addition to sending you the playlist that I mentioned, I'll send you articles if I can find them again. But blind people in America face profound discrimination, in my estimation, profound. Is it the same as growing up in South Africa? Absolutely not. Am I going to make that comparison? Absolutely not. But even in America, there's still deep discrimination, where some employers and some companies just are allowed to say, no, we're just not going to hire you. And what happens in American society is, unless the blind person is an attorney or has unlimited money, which most people are not both of those things, there's nothing that can be done. You can't just,
Mm.
go to due process or take someone to court. I don't know what expression you use in South Africa, but you can't just sue somebody in America because they
Yes,
didn't hire
yes.
you. This requires a lot of money. So you would think, although it's portrayed in America that, oh, I'm going to take you to court. I'll see you in court. No, I'll see you in court.
Yeah.
It's portrayed that way. But the reality is, once it comes to that, you look at your money and you realize, wait, I can't even afford an attorney, which the other secret about America is whoever has more money wins the argument, just like anywhere else. So,
Yeah.
a lot of times what is happening, and I would love to know the answer, and I can't tell what the answer is, but in American society, a lot of blind people are pushed aside and forgotten because
Sure.
they don't have the money to fight the good fight and to keep doing what they need to do. So what
Sure.
happens, unfortunately, the end result is you end up with blind adults living with extended family members for their entire lives and being a burden. Now, in my case, to really get under my own skin, I will say that yes, I live with my family, but the difference is I work as a teacher and I make a contribution to our family, and I have a job.
Mm.
And we could all say in our hearts, if the pandemic had never happened, well, yeah, we could say that. Regardless, we're in the situation we're in, and a lot of people are suffering a lot more. Everybody's held back in America from the pandemic, just
Mm.
like you are. Everybody's held back. Everybody's stuck right now. But you would be really disturbed and really fascinated to learn more in depth about how, and I'm sure you know what I'm alluding to, that many lecturers in the United States, many people in your position are not interested in teaching people with disabilities, and this is also a huge problem. So,
Mm.
the reason why I'm alluding to that is probably something happened to me. So, it's a big problem. Even in
Mm.
America, it's still there's still a problem. Even in America,
Sure.
there's still something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Um, sure. So how was your experience in university then?
Well, I was, I'll tell you, I'll tell you everything off air, but what I'm comfortable saying on a recording is, I was able to get the degree, and I do hold a degree in international
Mm. Mm.
relations,
Mm.
but
Mm.
because of a complex equation that occurred, the general public was, in my opinion, not interested in my knowledge.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and so
Get you.
then what happened was then, it was very understandably, you understand that this is incredibly humiliating and embarrassing for somebody who's overachieved, overcome everything to get the bachelor's degree, as you understand.
Of
And
course,
then
yeah.
and then of course it was also very, very, very upsetting to my parents and family who had worked with me my whole life to get me to that point.
Yes.
So you kind of understand I'm shying away from it on the recording, but I will gladly disturb you off air.
Yes.
But the result was I had to go about my own business. I had to find my own way. And that's what a lot of blind
Mm.
people do in America. They find their own path in life. And I don't know if that's right, but it is what seems to be happening. Yeah. What?
Yeah, it almost feels like if employers uh, are almost not forced in a way to
Yeah, but
hire
you
people
can't
with
force. The
disabilities.
thing is, the
No,
thing
you
that I've
can't.
learned
No,
is I can't force anybody to do
no,
anything. You can't
no,
force.
no,
That's
no.
the problem.
No, no, you can't. But what I'm saying, it is almost as if people are not forced, then
Right.
they won't. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Yes.
not saying they should be forced. It's just unfortunate that it's almost that situation. So I always count myself so lucky that there was someone in my interview panel who thought that I could do it. And I'm still astounded by it. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be a fact of, oh, I'm so astounded that someone believed that I could do it. But it is astounding, that someone actually didn't doubt everything, because you often find that people doubt uh, a lot of things, right?
Even in America, we have
One
doubters and we
Iemand,
have,
someone, oh, almost spoke Afrikaans. Someone once asked me, so did the people at your work knew that you were blind when they hired you? So, that's sort of almost the underlying assumption. If they knew, they wouldn't have, that sort of, that sort of thing, which is unfortunate. Of course they knew. I was there in person, but it's unfortunate that people should think that way.
But they won't.
So
But the thing is that I try to do in my own life is, that there are so many ignorant people, and I just try to not worry about it.
true,
I
true,
can't cure of all the problems I can cure. I can teach you English, I can teach you French, but I can't cure ignorance, or I can't teach you to be motivated. I can't cure
100%.
ignorance. I just can't.
Um,
But if you figure out a
yes,
way to do it, let
yes.
me know.
Wow, wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
So then in 2020, I started Aaron's Opinion, and a lot of people want to know how I got into the podcast space. So my whole life was surrounded by audio content. I loved radio, loved talking, and I can't shut up. So I noticed that there were a lot of blind, podcasts for blind people, but they weren't really receptive to, my opinions and my approach in living. And so I wanted to create Aaron's Opinion, where I can give you, Heidi, and many others from around the universe the chance to come to my microphone and have a wonderful conversation about what's going on in their life journey. And that's why I created Aaron's Opinion, which has been through, many iterations and alterations, starts and stops and fits. But over the years, this is where we are now with all the things we offer, the groups that we
Wow.
offer, and the YouTube and the all the podcasts and things like that. So yeah,
So
what
it's
else?
5 years old,
Oh
the
yes, yes.
podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
it takes it a long time. It takes it a long time to build up the download and to build up the momentum over time. Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Have
Wow.
you have you been on, speaking of name dropping other great people around the world, have you been interviewed on A Different Way of Seeing, Lois Strahan?
No, she actually asked me on Facebook once, but then we never, somehow, I don't know how what happened. We never
So
got to
you
it,
gotta go do that one. Go talk to her. She's amazing. She's been on my
Mm.
show and I've been on her show. Lois is great. She's great.
Yes,
Go do
she
that for
is.
sure. For sure. So yeah, okay. If you can ask me to wrap it up today, if you can ask me only one question now to really make me sweat, to get under my skin, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you, Heidi, want to know? One more
You're putting
question.
me on the spot. You know I'm not one of questions.
Well,
Ah, um, if I have to ask you something around the podcast,
sure.
um, well, it will not make you sweat, I'm sure, but what has been the most difficult part for you of having the podcast?
The most difficult part of having a podcast is getting the word out, believe it or not. Getting other people to listen to
Mm.
what you have to say is very hard. It's very tricky,
Oh,
for sure.
mm. Okay, okay, okay.
Well, Heidi,
Great.
you did an incredible job today, and I really enjoyed learning from you. We've covered it all, and I think people are really going to be receptive to this beautiful, very interactive conversation today. So, what I want to know, though, before we wrap it up, and there's one thing we'll do for just another 30 seconds after this conversation, too. But before we go, though, on the main recording, so if somebody wants to get in touch with Heidi, how can you be reached?
I'm available on email, and that is my email address is. Should I spell it out?
Yeah, yes,
It's
that would be great.
Lourens. I'll just say it's hlourens.psych@gmail.com, and that is HLOURENS dot P for Peter, S for Sally, Y for don't know what, young, CH@gmail.com.
Okay.
So hlourens.psych@gmail.com.
Heidi, I wish you all the best in the continued success of your work as a lecturer and all the great research you do. Just keep doing that and keep helping people from all over the world. Thank you so much. And of course, as we say on Aaron's Opinion, thank you so much, Heidi. We'll be back soon. And until then, have a wonderful day and keep podcasting, everybody. And until then, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.